All right, we'll see if we can get this 350 big block cranking here. Hey, what's going on everybody? Alex here with Freedom Mowers. I hope you all are doing well. On today's video, we are going to be revisiting a Briggs V-twin that I actually need for a replacement on this John Deere I just picked up the other day. Came with a bag of parts of something that came loose in the engine. I believe it's camshaft, but the guy basically cobbled this thing back together and stuck it on the machine. Doesn't even have a sump seal or anything on it, and it looks like a mess. So about 3 months ago, we had a Craftsman LT2000 that had a Briggs V-twin on it, and the mower was just in really rough shape. We tested the engine out, got it up and running, but it was not running very well. So I think from what I remember, it's definitely going to need a carb clean, probably knock out a valve adjustment on it, just get everything kind of cleaned up, make sure everything is solid on it, get it idling smooth, and ready for transplant. So let's jump to it, check it out, and see what we got to do to get this thing running. All right, and here it is. I don't know if we ever even looked up what the horsepower was on it. This is a 07 V-twin. There were a few things wrong with it from what I remember, and I was just glancing back over it to refresh my memory, but we are missing a bolt on the intake runner, missing bolt on the governor bracket. Believe that the tube for the fuel pump, I'm sure, is probably cracked. I think that the starter was kind of acting a little funky on us last time, and it definitely needed a carb clean. So we're going to try to go through everything on this today, get this all cleaned up a little bit, and see what we can do with it in order to get it prepped to put on another machine and give it a new life. So, all right, and this is what I've got. Went ahead and set up the test stand. It's been a while since I had this actually set up. Got a new bungee on it, got the tank. I had to run some new fuel line with a shutoff valve, and we also have a fuel filter back there. I've just got it connected up to the fuel pump on here, which I did check the pulse pump line, and it seems like it's all right. Now, I did find two bolts, some hardware to mount up the intake manifold and the governor setup on here. I got a muffler. I don't even know what this one was off from, but another V-twin, and I've got some mechanics wire just holding it on. And kind of what we're going to end up rigging up here on this is the gray wire here is actually the wire that comes to our positive on the fuel solenoid, because once we get this cranking over, we need the fuel solenoid to open up so that we can get fuel in. And the way that I'm going to do it is run this black lead. I've got just a little like momentary push button switch. I'm going to hook that lead to the gray wire. The other end is going to be clamped to the positive side on my jumper pack, and then I will take my ground on the jumper pack, so we're just grounding out on the engine, and I will tap the hot lead to the starter. So as soon as this thing's cranking over, if we can get it to crank up at the same time, I got to be holding the button down to open the fuel solenoid and also work the choke. So this ought to be quite the contraption to get going, but first thing I'd like to do is I will open up the fuel line on here. I've got just a little bit of fuel in that tank. We're going to check to see if we can get anything coming out of the fuel pump. If we are, I'll hook that line back up, and then I'll get you guys set up on the floor where we can crank this thing over and see if we can't get it started up, and we can take it from there. All right, we'll see if we can get this 350 big block cranking here. Now, so we just got to turn on the fuel. It probably will, yeah, it's going to start coming out of the pump. We'll just crank it for a second, make sure we're pulsing out of there. All right, I don't want any more than that because we already got fuel going everywhere. So turn that off. We'll hook our line back up. I will go ahead and get everything dried up here because we don't need any fires in the shop. All right, so I've got it set up. You can hear, maybe y'all can't hear, but You can hear the plunger opening for the fuel solenoid. So basically, like I said, I'm going to have to do is jump this to the starter, have this held down at the same time, and then once it cranks, I'll take the hot lead off the starter and keep this depressed, keeping the fuel solenoid open. I think we should be good here. The choke, that should be choke. That should be full choke right there. So we'll leave it there. Make sure that we're at idle because I don't want this thing running away on us. So our governor seems to be working, and that should be about it. All right. Babe, you're going to have to back up. Okay, it's going to get loud in here.
Okay, I'm trying to go over here.
All right. Well, here we go. All right, well that is a lot of holding everything together, but obviously it did crank right up. Got a big helper in here, and let's see, did not seem like it wanted to run with the choke off. So just as I had suspected from the last time I ran this, it needs a carb clean. But I will go ahead and get set back up. We'll try to run it one more time, and then we'll get everything in place to start pulling this carb off from here and hopefully get this fuel system cleaned up. All right, we're gonna try this again. Open up the fuel. I did just put a piece of tape on the choke so that we can hold the choke all the way closed right now, because I don't think it's gonna run with the choke off. So I'm gonna try to hold this thing in place this time, make sure our solenoid is working. All right, so we should be good. Here we go. Seems like that throttle is up super high, but it tried to kind of get away with the throttle all the way closed, but it cranked right up, or with the choke all the way closed. But as soon as you take it off from choke, it's starting to cut off. So we will go ahead and move into getting into the fuel system on here, getting that sorted out, and hopefully we don't have any issues with linkage on the governor or anything like that, but we can adjust that as we need. But so far it's nice and healthy. It's not smoking, it's not doing anything crazy, and I think we're still going to have a good engine. Once we can get this thing at least idling, then we can check the voltage too to make sure that we've got the right voltage coming out. So I'll check in when we're getting ready to pull this carburetor off. Here in the shop, we're going to go ahead and get this carb off. We've got 4 3/8, I believe they're all going to be 3/8 bolts. Get these off. I've got to disconnect the wire for the anti-backfire, so I gotta get that loose. We've got to take the fuel line off. I can't get to the clamp because the clamp is right up against the carburetor body. So, and I don't know, I know when I got this as a trade-in, it had been sitting since the previous season, so at least 1.5 years. This, you know, the old gas, we've run it a couple of times, but I'm pretty sure there's still going to be some pretty yucky stuff in this carb. It never has run right since we've tried running it, and hopefully we can get that resolved today. But we'll take off, basically just take off the whole intake manifold, and once we get this off and onto the floor, then we can, I'll probably just take the bowl off first. We'll get a look at it, and then we'll see if I feel like we need to totally disassemble it, because you've got to pull a couple of nuts off and then a couple studs out to completely take apart this plastic piece from the back and the intake manifold. Just about there now. We've just got the one linkage that goes to our throttle. So we've got to tip this just right. Let's see. There we go. So we'll just kind of let that hang for now. Try to keep track of your linkages. That's pretty much it. So let me move the engine back a little bit, and we'll start checking out what's going on with this carburetor. All right, just blew the bottom off with some compressed air so we're not dropping a bunch of stuff in here. Somebody has already rounded these screws off. So I've got my vice grips here. As long as you can kind of just get the seal broken on them, they'll usually come loose. There we go, I did get it loose. Let me see if the other one will crack loose on us. This one looks rounded as well. No, that one came loose. All right, well, we'll keep going here. People messing where they weren't supposed to be. My guess is there's gonna be a bunch of chunks in here, but we'll have to check the main jets on here. On these ones, I actually have two different size jets because I believe it's this side runner is slightly shorter than this side runner. Oh yeah, look at the rust and chunks in here. And then the main jet is down there at the bottom on here, or at least where it pulls up. So we'll have to take the anti-backfire solenoid off so that we can get this portion off, and then we'll go through it to clean up all of the ports on here. The tip of the needle looks like it has a groove in here, but it might be okay. We'll see. I may have another one too if we need one. But yeah, you guys can see this thing is pretty filthy. I'll probably end up taking, there's two screws right here that come loose, and then this whole body comes out, and then we can take the upper side off as well, and you should be able to see all the way through there, and we can clean those jets. We'll get all this cleaned out. We'll just clean up everything here, spray through it, spray through all the ports, and hopefully we'll be all right. So let me get some tools out to start getting this disassembled, and I'll show you guys. All right, let me show you guys what we got going on here. This thing's a hot mess. So for one, obviously we had all this rust and corrosion at the bottom of the bowl. Our pickup jet is completely blocked on here, and so I don't even know how this thing was even pulling fuel up even with full choke on. Here on our bottom side we have these two emulsion tubes which look pretty clear on here. This one on this side looks like somebody took a pair of pliers to it because it's kind of got a tiny little dent in it. But we also have these other two holes right below it, and those are the ones that this tube from your pickup jet go to. And once you take this upper cover off from here, this port right here and this port right here, you can see the jets down in it, and you're supposed to be able to see through them. Now those are the two jets that are different sizes, but somebody used some high temp gasket on here for a sealer, which it really shouldn't need. This gasket should work just fine. And also I just realized too that there is no gaskets on the intake manifold where it connects to the cylinder heads on here. So I was just looking and I don't have any gaskets for it, so I have some gasket maker, so we're probably going to have to make up some intake manifold gaskets for this. It'd probably be in the best interest to go ahead and completely disassemble and get this totally clean, because it's in pretty rough shape and somebody was definitely messing around in here. So what I am going to do is we've got to take these four nuts off the back. I think they're 7/16 Once we get those off, I believe the plastic comes off, and then we need I believe it's a 1/4 inch or something like that. I can't remember. It's been a while since I messed with one, but then we take these studs out. When these studs come out, it basically takes this whole sandwiched piece apart. We'll be left with a plastic piece on the front, and hopefully we can get that off without tearing the gasket. We'll have to see just what's going on with this. But all right, I just got the 4 bolts off the back. It was 7/16, and I was wrong about the size of to get these studs out. I actually use a 5/32 6-point, and it fits right on the end of this. I don't know what the actual bit is supposed to be that fits on it, but these do fit on here fine, and these are definitely way looser than they're supposed to be. But that's pretty much it. So see, that's right, we got to pull this gasket off first because there's a lip on those studs. I'll show y'all here in a minute. I haven't done a V-twin carb in a while, so a little rusty here, and I don't feel like ripping these up because I don't think I have any more gaskets. I need to look though around in my stash of stuff. But yeah, so there's that lip. If you try to just unscrew those, you'll end up just tearing that gasket. All right. This thing is so packed with dirt, it's crazy. So I guess we don't have to take the, I forgot I didn't even get to the point of trying to take the choke lever off, but it'll just stay right there on that intake manifold. But now we are left basically with the carburetor. I'm going to disconnect the linkage for the throttle, which looks like it's been mangled too. Could have been part of our issue with that high idle. Let me go ahead and pop this in the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm going to start cleaning up these other parts here. I'll get all this mess cleaned up. We'll get some fresh towels down, and I'll show you guys what everything looks like pretty much cleaned up. All right, there was one more step. I had forgotten about this. So on here, you can take this plate off. Show you guys what I'm going to do here. So we're going to take this plate off, which is going to allow us to take the, let me show you here. So once we get this plate, then we can take this linkage out here, and once we've got that out, now there's another screw back here, and then we can take this out as well, and it's going to allow us to take this other piece out. So I'm going to just pull it. Alright, so now we've got that out. I believe there's just 2 more. I think there's just 2 more ports that can be cleaned in here, and we'll let the ultrasonic cleaner do some work in there. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it as far as the disassembly. I'm sure somebody in the comments will let me know if there was more to break down on here, but that's pretty much it. So I'll go ahead and pop this in the ultrasonic cleaner, and we'll see what it looks like when it comes out. All right, well, I've got a big old mess in here, but I got this thing out. Ran it about 4 times through the ultrasonic cleaner for about 8 minutes, and it was on pretty hot. I did have another parts carburetor, which was a clone carburetor I got off Amazon a while back. Tried to use it on something and it didn't work right, but it had a lot of the gaskets that I needed, or the O-rings. So I went ahead and replaced the O-ring on here, and I did want to show you guys. I'm gonna see if I can get this to come through clear enough. Hopefully it will. So right underneath of those 2 tubes, trying to get where y'all can see. There we go, right there. You can see light through those, and that actually goes through the other side as well, right about there. I know it's hard to pick up, but I had to make sure those jets were clear and they were both blocked up. Now I did take, there is the O-ring that goes down on top of this piece here. So this is going to go back just like that. I've got to get those screws in, and then also on the front side here, if you guys remember, this is the gasket that came off from it. Well, the holes on the bottom, those bottom 4 holes, are almost completely blocked off, and I took the one out of the knockoff carburetor, and this is how it's supposed to look. So you can see, let me set this carburetor down. You can see side by side the difference in them. This one just doesn't even have holes left in it anymore. So this one is going to have to go in, and that just basically drops right in. And then the that plate right here, which I've cleaned off, how does this one go in here? Yeah, that just slides right in, and then I can drop my screw. So I'm just gonna set this down for a sec. I'll get all this assembled, but just wanted to show you guys, this thing was a absolute mess. The pickup jet on here, I got that nice and clean. This was that old gasket for the emulsion tubes I just showed you guys. And I went ahead, cleaned up the nuts on here, cleaned up that, I think it's the choke arm, the plate, all of the studs on there, and then now I've just got to go clean up the intake manifold. Now I did also happen to find, which I think came with this kit, 2 intake manifold gaskets. So I did luck out this time. I don't have to make them, but yeah, also cleaned up the intake manifold there a little bit. It's still pretty grimy, but it was caked on there. So you guys can see the mess I got here on just pulling apart this carburetor. So what I'm gonna do now is pretty much get it about halfway assembled. I'll get that plastic piece cleaned up, show you guys where I'm at when this is mostly together, and then I'll finish buttoning it up, and we'll get to bolt it up and hopefully get this thing running and idling. Alright, I've got this mostly back together now. Like I said before, I took the O-ring from that other carb. I did take the needle and seat as well. Butterflies back in, all those gaskets are good. Put the new, sorry, trying to do this one-handed. I got the new top plate on here and took the gasket with that from the other carburetor as well. Bowl is all cleaned up the anti-backfire. There's a little bit of pitting in here, but I think we're pretty much good to go. I'm going to go ahead and reassemble. I'll show you guys once I've got this thing pretty close to getting back on. We'll make sure we get our gaskets in place and get all the linkages hooked up, and then I'm going to go to my parts shed and see if I have a choke cable that we can use. That way it'll be a little bit easier on starting up this time. So I'll show you guys when we get to that. Here we go. Make sure we've got our choke on right now. I have not turned the fuel on. I just put a little bit more in the tank. Our carburetor bowl is dry, so it'll probably take a minute to crank up. I did just check to make sure, if you guys can hear it, the anti-backfire is hooked up. So I gotta hold down this, and we're gonna hit the starter. So here we go. Linkage came off. Alright, I gotta figure out what's going on with this linkage on the other one. Same thing, it's still trying to run away, and I need to make sure that this governor is set up right, because like I said, someone's been in here before, and I'm worried that the governor is not set right either, and I don't need this thing running away and blowing up on us. Alright, well, things got a little bit crazy earlier, and unfortunately, the hour plus that I spent on that carburetor trying to get that thing 100% still did not work. It kept misfiring on this side. I tried and tried. Could not get it fixed. So what I did is I actually had another twin cylinder carburetor in here, the one with the plastic manifold. And I'll show you guys, I just got the cover set on here. So this is the newer style cover compared to the one that was on here, and the machine that it's going on actually has the newer style cover, so this will work out better. But I had the plastic intake manifold with basically the same style carburetor. Went through, took the top plate off, cleaned everything out there underneath. Went through this whole one. I didn't go as far because I just wanted to see if it would work. And honestly, it runs like a dream. I'll show you guys here in a minute. Let's see, I just swapped out the upper fan here. It was just 2 bolts and got that all set. What else? I don't really see a good way for me to be able to check the voltage regulator on here without hooking up all kinds of stuff. And it would be a whole lot easier once we get this transplanted onto the tractor. And also the engine that it came off from is set up for electric PTO, so if I need to, I can just take the parts off from that one and we should be good to go. But yeah, this one was supposed to have been a little bit quicker, but I have spent basically the entire day messing with this. But let's see how good it runs and get this thing ready to button up and get on another tractor. Took the choke off. Make sure you guys can see. He's purring now. Turned off the fuel to it. So yeah, like I said, this thing runs awesome. And one last thing that I want to do to this before we button it up, still need to degrease it, but I'll show you guys that at the end, is just check the valve adjustment on here, see where we're at, make sure we're good with that, and then we should be able to wrap this up. So our valve cover is going to be 4 3/8 bolts, and we're looking at 4 to 6 thousandths on the intake and exhaust. Now this is cold. I actually jumped to the next day in this clip, and I've got my stand on a brick here on the ground so the engine's tilted back a little bit. Hopefully we don't have a lot of too much oil drip, but that will help. So we'll get this cover off. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and take the plugs off from here too, so we can rotate this over by hand easily. So I'll get these plugs popped out real quick, get the valve cover off, and we'll see where we're at on the current valve lash. And our plugs look to be in almost new shape. They're NGKRs. Now this is the one that came off from this side. This is the one that was having that misfire yesterday when I was trying to get the carburetor sorted out. And this one was the other side, and that looks like it's running really well. I believe this one's going to clean up just fine. But we should be good on plugs. That first one was pretty loose. It definitely looks like these valve cover gaskets had been leaking, so I'm gonna see if I have another set of those so we can get some fresh valve cover gaskets on here too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just see which valve opens first. So I'm gonna bring that exhaust valve all the way down to the bottom. That will alleviate tension on the top. I've got a 4 thousandths feeler gauge. Let me get out y'all's way here. And that is definitely farther than the 4 thousandths. All right, I just want to make sure y'all can see. So it should have to crack loose this nut. This is actually the hold down. I did crack it loose just to make sure I had the right one. It was a 1/2 inch, and then we've got our adjuster is a what is this one? T40. Now we can make our adjustment here. I'm gonna go ahead and snug this down until we get some drag. Need a little bit more. I'm gonna tighten this by finger real quick. Give it a little wiggle. And that feels good right there. So now we can lock this down. And yeah, usually when you lock it down, it gives it a little, seems like it gives it a little bit of slack. So I'm gonna crack that loose again. And then readjust. Don't crank on these because you can break it off. All right, and that feels good right there. So we'll leave that one. We'll rotate over, open the intake all the way. See what our exhaust feels like. Yeah, and that one's got quite a gap in it. So take our adjuster loose, our lockdown nut. This one was way out. I got that one pinching pretty snug. It says 4 to 6 thousandths, so even if it's a little bit on the looser side of 4, that's good right there, honestly. Got a little bit of drag. So you guys can see, fiddled with the other one for a little while. But yeah, we're good right there. So let's rotate it over one more time. Open up that exhaust valve. Check it. Yeah, we are good right there. All right. Yep. All right, so that's perfect right there. We've got these snug down. Everything else in here, I mean, you guys heard the engine was running good. I am gonna see if I can find another valve cover gasket for this, because I can see it's worn out on the bottom. It's pretty much petrified. So I'll see if I've got a set of those. I'm gonna go ahead and knock out the other side. Same procedure. And then I'll show you guys when we're back. We'll get this thing cranked up, and we'll be done with this motor for now. Be ready for that transplant. All right, it is time to finally finish this up. I got the other side done. I did not have any more gaskets, so I wiped those ones clean. It's gonna have to work for now. I will get some on order. Now, this cover did have the fuel pump mounted on it, but the bracket that was on this engine actually did work out just fine, where I didn't have to change anything up. I went through and cleaned everything the best I could with a wire brush, some degreaser, and just trying to get things tidied. But we got the new upper cover on, and it looks really good. I cleaned, regapped the plugs on it. I did put a new piece of fuel hose onto the from the pump to the carburetor now. And I think that's about it. I think we should be good. Our valve lash should be all set now. I've still got a little bit of gas in the tank. I have not run this since yesterday. It is stone cold, and we are at 44 degrees right now. So get y'all set up here and see how this sounds with the valve lash And hopefully we are good to go. I just got done setting everything back up, got the shop cleaned, so fuel is on. I did already pull the choke. I checked too to make sure that our solenoid is working, and make sure that our ground wire is not touching to turn off. Of course, my lead just fell off for the power wire. Alright, let's double check. Alright, we got power. Alright, so here we go. Choke's off. Alright, honestly sounds great. I think it was just trying to hunt just a little bit there because it is so cold and it needed a second to warm up. We can try one more crank on it real quick, see how it does. We'll try it without the choke this time. Hopefully it'll fire right up for us. I am super happy with that. Looking good. Basically got this thing all freshened up and ready for a swap. Alright, and I think that's going to do it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Maybe you learned a little something, or at least enjoyed watching me tinker with this V-twin. I've got this project also going on at the same time. I'm not sure which one you guys will see first, but this Cub Cadet was pretty rough shape, had a lot of rust on it, and hadn't been run in at least 2 or 3 years. So that one's coming up. I've got quite a few John Deere's, and we're also going to be doing probably a Craftsman YS 3000, I think it is. So I got plenty of stuff coming up, and as always, I really appreciate it. I'm sorry for the lack of content. There's been a lot of stuff going on. We actually have another baby on the way, and we also have had just family stuff going on. I had some skin cancer that I had to get removed, so that's the bandage you guys are seeing, and among just a slew of things. So I really appreciate you guys staying tuned, and new people joining the channel. I greatly appreciate it. So on that note, let freedom ring, let the small engine sing. I'll see you all in the next one.